I have been very fortunate in my career that I had a lot of mentors who happened to bring me into the IT space because it's not something that I grew up saying, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. We put AI out there and we talk about agentic AI and generative AI and all of this, but not everybody understands exactly what that means, right? So we want to help them understand what these different types of technologies are and how they can use them. We also have to help them understand some of the risks associated with it, right? So that we're doing the right thing, because that's core to who we are as TD Synnex. We're going to do the right thing and make sure that we use AI responsibly. How you manage an employee and how you manage an agent. Just think about when you bring somebody on, you do a background check. Well, with an agent, you have to do some of the same cyber checks and make sure that it's safe to use.
Welcome to the Chief AI Officer Podcast,
where AI meets leadership.
And here is your host, Sanjay Puri.
Welcome to the CAIO Podcast, where we explore the journeys, insights, and challenges of Chief AI Officers driving transformative AI initiatives in the world's largest enterprises and government agencies. I'm your host, Sanjay Puri, and today we have an extraordinary guest who exemplifies how traditional CIO roles are evolving into AI-driven transformation leadership roles. Kristie Grinnell is the Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer at TD Synnex, a Fortune 500 technology distributor with over $60 billion in revenue. But what makes Kristie's story particularly compelling for our AI community is her vision for building what she calls an agentic AI factory and a bot factory at TD Synnex. Ambitious initiatives that caught my attention when she announced them a few months into her role. But with 25 years of transformation experience, Kristie has led digital revolutions at companies like DXC Technology, where she drove a massive AI-enabled transformation across 80 countries. Today, we'll dive deep into her AI journey, explore how she's building TD Synnex AI capabilities from the ground up, and learn how she's navigating the complex intersection of AI, cybersecurity, and global transformation. Kristie, welcome to the CAIO podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Sanjay. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Awesome. Kristie, we have a global audience, across the world. These are AI enthusiasts, AI practitioners, these are AI entrepreneurs, leaders. Walk them a little bit through your journey, how you ended up in this place, just briefly for people who are listening to you and want to get inspired and follow in your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been very fortunate in my career that I had a lot of mentors who happened to bring me into the IT space because it's not something that I grew up saying, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But they recognized that my skill set might be applicable. So going from being a mechanical engineer by learning, a manufacturing engineer is my first job out, then went back to business school and happened to be in a management consulting role at PwC when the e-business bubble was first popping or starting. And really thinking about, what are those things that technology can do to help businesses talk to each other, to help businesses talk to their employees and to their customers as well. And so as I navigated that journey, I then got really excited. In my last role at PwC, I was 10 years in, and the global CIO at the time said, we're going to lead a global transformation. What do you think? And I said, I'm on board. I don't know what that means, but let's think about it. And over the years, I then was able to become the CIO myself at various organizations. And the key part of the journey has been about listening and understanding what can you do to bring the intersection of people and technology to really grow a business and drive that good business outcome that we're looking for. And that's what's been really exciting. And over the decades that I've been here, all the new technologies bring about new potential, new possibilities. And it's my job as the CIO really to just unlock that by seeing the art of the possible. So,
well, For our listeners, I think one of the lessons from her is say yes when your boss says, "Are you going to try something?" Raise your hands. And I think what you're saying is the intersection of technology and people, I think, is what the key formula is, because without people, technology is not as important. Uh, yeah, so Christine, one of your LinkedIn posts, you announced phase two at TD Synnex. You mentioned what is right now the term, or so to speak, the term of the day or the buzzword of the day. You talked about building an agentic AI factory and a bot factory. For our audience, can you paint a picture what this looks like in practice, and how will it transform your operations? How could it transform maybe their operations?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you need to look at it from two different things, two different angles, really, Sanjay. So the first one is, as I came into TD Synnex, we have a new CEO who I'm so thankful. He's very forward thinking in technology, and he
Mm-hmm.
sees the future of distribution is digital, right? This is how our customers and our vendors want to interact with us, either transacting or you know uh, uh, um, providing content and product and provisioning technology to our joint customers at the end of the day. And so, because of that, we need to have a really strong digital foundation. So, our CEO is very much leaning into what are those new technologies? How can we do that? How can we
Mm-hmm.
bring that typical personal relationship in
Mm-hmm.
selling technology today, and augmenting that with technology and really driving that forward so that we can think about that new, digital distribution network. Additionally, as we grow, right? So TD Synnex has come together. We're the largest technology distribution company in the world, but we want to continue to grow, and that's our promise to the street. And there's a couple different ways that we talk about doing that. One, digitalizing those interactions and transactions that we have with our customers and vendors, but also how do we do it to ourselves? How do we use all of this digital technology, automation, AI, data in order to operate in a better way as well? So, from an IT perspective, what can I do to do that as we grow? I don't want to have to grow and scale at the same rate from a people and technology perspective. I want to use things like automation and agentic AI and data in order to help me drive a better IT business as we grow, just like our CHRO, who is also very forward thinking with AI, to really think about how do we augment our workforce. When I think about, new developers on my team, how do I bring them in so that they can leverage these types of tools to really augment their role? He's doing the same thing from an HR perspective. How can we think about how we can augment that HR role and help provide better learning, better performance development, better recruiting for our people so that as we scale, again, we're not having to scale, at the same rate, but we can use a augmented workforce using AI to help us grow. So we're really excited about that. But in order to do that, what we don't want to do, we saw, historically the proliferation of number one, your IT shop in the background is looking at this and saying, don't do anything without me. I'll do it for you, right? Which we're not going to keep up with the pace of technology at that point if that's what we do. The other thing we saw, though, is the proliferation of tools that we've used in the background. And one of the things that I have been using to help make this real for people is, if you go back several decades to the Lotus Notes time, right, where everybody was using Lotus Notes, all large corporations, you would say, I'm going to create this Lotus Notes database to do workflow. I'm going to create this Lotus Notes database to store content. I'm going to create this Lotus Notes database to do whatever you wanted it to do. And all of a sudden, you had all of these databases that made it impossible to upgrade, made it impossible to know where to find things, and made it really hard to connect, process for our people and get real work done efficiently. And if we're not careful, we could do the same thing from an agentic AI perspective. So instead of us letting this happen that way, where we do want to be able to experiment and dabble. We want an agentic AI factory that says, this is the factory you should use, where you should create these agents, and so that they can talk to one another and become more efficient together as we grow. And so I'll just take it one more example forward, and then we can peel back the onion wherever you want. But the idea is that when you think about AI and how we want to grow the interaction with our customers and vendors, but also with our employees, we want to make sure that some of this agentic AI, and when I say that, like, it's all AI, right? We want it
Mhm.
just to be there. And some of it, just like when we use an app on our phone, we're not thinking how to use it. It's natural. It's native in the way that we work, and we know how to use it instantly because it shows up on our phone.
Mhm.
Chat GPT, all the LLMs, put your question here and you put your question there and oh, voila, like, isn't that great?
Mhm.
Now, there's then the far side of that, which is, look, agentic AI, it does reasoning, it generates new content, code, video, images, whatever the case may be, depending on what that is, the type of data that you're using, the different systems that you're integrating with those agents. Got to be a little bit more careful, and you might need a professional to do that for you. Might be my team leading the way. And then there's that middle part, which is where we really see where we could get the biggest bang for our buck from an agentic AI factory, right? And that's where the citizen development comes in, where you just need to guide all of our amazing coworkers every day who say, I have an idea. I could make this more efficient if I did this. I could make it easier for our customer to do this, or I
Mhm.
could make it easier to bring our vendors on board to sell their product if I do this. So let me give them an agentic AI factory that's smart enough to help lead them through some of those simpler use cases to augment their role, to augment our coworkers or I'm sorry, our customers and how we work with them to go sell product, or to onboard our vendors so that we can sell that product as well. So the idea is using this factory for a no code, low code, and pro code capability to really drive success as we continue to grow TD Synnex.
Wow. Uh, the Christie, a lot of questions in there because agentic AI is, as we talked about, the flavor of the day or maybe the year, whatever you want to call it. And this is really for your peers who are probably struggling or want to get inspired. So, explaining to them this AI bot factory, is it like an app store within your organization where there are a bunch of these agents that people can look at? That's question one. Secondly, you said people can, whether you are in sales, delivery, etc., you can have your own agents. Um, do they come to the CIO shop for doing it? Are there standards? Are there use cases for them? And then obviously I want to talk about your CEO you mentioned because uh, C-level leadership in AI makes a huge difference. I want to talk about that, but let's just, for your peers, explain to them what you're talking about in agentic AI.
Yeah, so the vision that we have, and mind you, I've been here 5 months, so we're
Of
still in
course.
the process of getting this ready. But the
Hmm.
vision that I'm thinking for this is, if you think about a parent-child relationship, right?
Hmm.
That if I give you the house to work in, it's got
Hmm.
all of the security it needs. It's got
Hmm.
all of the standards that we need to work in to make sure that we know how we want to use API protocols and those sorts of
Hmm.
things. It has the technology that we vetted from an agentic perspective to say, yes, this is the way that we should use this. Then that gives our kids a secure play box to play in, right? Like, I
Hmm.
know you can go to that playground and you'll be okay.
Hmm.
And so the concept then being that as long as you're in this play box, you can start to create these, but it's also going to set some of the controls, right? Don't go outside this fence because that might be data that puts us at
Hmm.
risk and we don't want it to get outside, or it's sensitive data and not everybody should have access to it, or you're integrating with a really sensitive tool or corporate financials or whatever and the
Hmm.
tools that run that for record and reporting processes. So it's giving them those boundaries that they can play in. And then the idea is that they know I can go here and it will have access to these LLMs. It'll have access to these tools within that to create the various agents. And it will also work with some of the native agents that we have, but we can connect them because the APIs are available. So it gives us then a library of agents that we can use, but we're not just thinking about the technology itself, Sanjay. We want them to think about the process that we have as well, right? So within our various regions, within our corporate functions, we want to think about that end-to-end value chain of how we're adding value to our company, looking at the end-to-end process and thinking about how do we become more efficient? How do we get the right data to the right people to make good business decisions? And that's that concept of having that agentic AI factory. So you might have somebody say, look, I want to create an RFP agent. And here's the agent that is going to, it's got the template of what needs to be there. And it says, who is this for? What product are they using? How much do they need? What scale? And then we have the ability to have the pricing in there and what the vendor line cards might look like. And that's great. There's also, though, there might be a larger sales agent. So that could be one of the specific ones, RFP. There might be a larger sales agent, though, that says, what are you trying to do as a salesperson? I'm trying to write an RFP. Oh, okay. Go call this agent, right? So you can think about that parent-child relationship. There might be an RFP agent. There might be a pricing agent. There might be a lead agent, right? For all of our sales team that the larger sales agent calls. So the idea is that if we think through those end-to-end processes, think through what these agents might have a very specific specialty in, and then it guides our coworker experience using the master or parent agent to really drive them through, and it will call all of these various agents depending on where they sit. So it's really helping within that playground, having the library of toys or tools that they can use and ensuring they're in a secure place that nobody's going to come and get them and do anything wrong. And then making sure that they know how to interact as well. But knowing that, this this set of agents, this set of kids actually are my kids, right? So the sales parent agent talks to all of the child specific process agents that it needs to call. And you might think that from a vendor perspective, a coworker perspective, a customer perspective, an HR professional perspective, an IT perspective. And we still need to map all that out and see what it looks like. But giving them the factory is the start, and we can always clean it up on the back end as we go.
Oh, fantastic. Just a couple of quick questions, Kristie, because this is, as I said, from your peers, these were some of the questions that came in. Is it a push thing or is it a pull thing? Are you pushing it to the businesses or the businesses are pushing you, or it's a little bit of both? That was one of the questions for you.
So already I see, Sanjay, the great part of having a CEO who's so forward thinking. He has one of our big strategic imperatives for our digitalizing our marketplace and to operate with excellence, to be powered by technology, which is awesome. So because of that, we've had a lot of people already say, this is what I want to do to help meet these strategic imperatives. So they're pushing and saying, give me a tool. I need it now, right? And I want to go use this. I want to go use that. And that's great. We also want to pull some of the people in and say, look, here's how you should use some of these tools, because some of them are a little bit more important than others in helping us achieve some of the goals that we have, from trying to, go into new markets and new services and solutions as an example. So we're going to pull that as well. And that's the healthy tension you want, right? Where if we have a CEO who's motivating our workforce to really be thinking differently, changing their mindset, and how we can use technology to augment all of our coworkers to achieve these big goals we have over the next several years, then we want them chomping at the bit and saying, give me, give me, give me, right? And we want to be able to give them that. But at the same time, we want to pull them along in a way that's really going to cohesively drive the strategy so that we are all connected and coordinated.
So a little bit of push and a little bit of pull.
Healthy tension.
Yeah, Kristie, let's just say some of these folks have these agents. Let's just say some of these salespeople have some of these agents. I call them, let's just call them agent workers or whatever you want term is currently. Who is responsible for those agent work? Is that the salesperson or is it the CIO shop, the IT shop?
Yeah, so that's something that our new CHRO and I are both talking about. Like we're both new, which is great. So we're trying to think this through together, and we are really trying to partner. So he's been thinking about how do you manage this hybrid workforce, right? Because we're going to have our amazing employees who really understand this distribution industry and how we really can digitalize this value chain and how we get there. We also know that we need to augment that workforce with these agents so that we can do more without growing our costs at the same time. So, in order to do that, he and I need to work very closely together. I wish I had all the answers. However, here's the direction I would tell you as we're leaning on this. When you think about how you manage an employee and how you manage an agent, just think about when you bring somebody on, you do a background check. Well, with an agent, you have to do some of the same cyber checks and make sure that it's safe to use. And just like you're managing their background check with that security, you're managing the agent with that security. When you're onboarding them and saying, what do you want them to do? You have to give them a focused task. And so that onboarding matters and how they're going to work together. You also have to have somebody managing the performance, just like you manage the performance of your employee. You're going to continue to manage the performance of that agent. Is it delivering the outcomes we need? Is it hallucinating? Is it doing the crazy things, right, that we don't want it to do? But also, is it achieving that business outcome? And is there more that we need it to do? Or has it outlived its life because we've now moved past that? So we're thinking that a lot of the processes that you would have for a human, you would also have for an agent. And we're going to need to plan for those so that this hybrid workforce can work together in the way that we see our workforce growing. And we're excited to see how we do that. I wish I had all the answers and could tell you exactly how to do it, but that's the concept that we're looking at.
Well, this is new territory for everybody, but it is fantastic that you are out there and you have a partner in your CHRO, which I think is very, very important. And we'll talk a little bit about your CEO and CO leadership. But
Yeah.
just moving on to a little bit about what you've said, you know, how has your role, Kristie, evolved from, as a CIO, now you're taking on AI leadership, and you're basically AI enabling with, obviously the support of your CEO, your organization. Do you see the traditional CIO role in some case eventually merging with or evolving into chief AI officer role?
Yeah. So whether it's a chief AI officer role or just expanding the capabilities of the CIO, I don't know what that really means. But look, I think we all need to think AI is, we said this with cyber as well, right? Like cyber originally was like, oh, this is the CISO's responsibility. And then you look around and you're like, actually, it's everybody's responsibility, right? And AI is essentially that same thing. So I might help lead the way of here's the foundational technologies that we will use. But AI is going to become every responsibility. And I actually, as I'm interviewing people and talking about new roles and I'm bringing my team together, I'm actually saying to them, help me understand how AI is going to augment what you do, because I don't want you to think, I need to do all this extra work and do all this to transform. How are you going to use agents to help us do this? So AI starts to become everybody's responsibility in the way that we work. And we need to all shift our mindset a little bit to say, like, if I had this sidekick, and we did a podcast internally about this, and the question our moderator asked, which was so great, was, imagine you're a superhero and you had a sidekick. who would that be? And that's exactly what we want everybody to be thinking of, is who is your sidekick? Who do you want to make you that superhero so that we are the best at what we do? But that sidekick is helping us along the way and handling some of the stuff that allows us to be that superhero. So that's how I view it.
Do you think there's a big transformation part of this also? Are you playing a chief transformation officer in some ways also, Kristie? Because that is one of the things that a lot of your peers are asking.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is part of it is because we have to educate, right? That,
Mm-hmm.
people first of all need to understand the technology and what it does, right? So
Mm-hmm.
part of them is helping them, like, we put AI out there and we talk about agentic AI and generative AI and all of this, but not everybody understands exactly what that means, right? So we want to help them understand what these different types of technologies are and how they can use them. We also
Mm-hmm.
have to help them understand some of the risks associated with it, right? So that we're doing the right thing, because that's core to who we are as
Mm-hmm.
TD Synnex. We're going to do the right thing and make sure that we use AI responsibly. So there's that educational component to it. There's also the part of helping to dispel the fear of AI, right? That,
Mm-hmm.
is this going to displace us or anything like that? And in order to change our hearts and minds of all of our TD Synnex coworkers and even those customers and vendors that we work with, and how we can use AI to help digitalize the distribution supply chain and to help, augment our workforce, they have to really see it as that. And so we have to help dispel some of that fear, show them that art of the possible of what can happen and how it can be a helpful tool, a sidekick, rather
Mm-hmm.
than a fear mongering, it's going to displace me or it's going to create so much risk, I'm afraid of it, right? So it's my job to do that, which is just transformational in what we do. But also understanding I can't do it myself, which is why I love having the CEO, a CHRO. This is something that we take to the board level and are talking to them about. And we're having this conversation across our entire ELT and really thinking about it. My very first month here, Sanjay, we actually did essentially an AI hackathon and had at our global leadership summit, people thinking about, if you could use AI, what would you do? And we were putting real business cases on the table and talking about what those looked like to help us.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
So, Christy, it seems the first part of our questions that you've had some tremendous support from your C-level suite. Uh, how important is it? I mean, you obviously have had that to get the C-level, also board level, because these days boards of public companies are paying a lot of attention. When someone is looking to, let's say, you took on this position 5 months ago, let's say somebody, one of your peers, is looking to take on, because this is, as you said, partly transformational. How important is the C-suite or the board support on this?
It I honestly don't know how else you do it without it, right? Because otherwise you're pushing this little rock uphill that is, collecting all the dirt and the weeds along the way, and that hill is pretty steep. And I'll give you just a piece of that, right? Because we have to manage the risk of it, number one, right? Like, you can't put AI on top of bad data, bad process, because otherwise you get, bad decisions from your data and more inefficiency being driven in your organization, which really can put you at risk. And if you use the data in the wrong way or create more vulnerabilities, you have to think about that. So that's number one, is that we need to be willing to wrap our arms around this and manage the risk in a way that it's business risk, right? And there's a piece of this. But on the other side of it, if we don't allow ourselves to innovate and to go forward and to try, we're going to be left
Mhm.
behind, right? Because every company is looking at it in the same way. So if you have your full board and CEO and executive leadership team support, all of a sudden you're able to start to make some of these decisions faster, which allows you to innovate in a secure way, managing that true business risk and not just the risk of AI. And it also helps with, just putting on the full CIO hat here for a second. Oftentimes you're going to see that my costs go up because I have to spend on these technologies, right? I have a new agentic AI factory that I need to put in place, and a bot factory, and there's GPU associated with that, and there's data cleanup associated with that, and all of these things that cost real money. At the same time, the efficiencies or the new revenue and the new business models are on the other side of the house. So if we're not coordinated, we're not going to see both sides of that. And we have to all be in lockstep and say it's worth this investment so we can do
Mhm.
this. Because if I'm just over here going, hey, I want to invest in this new technology, right? It's
Mhm.
technology for technology's sake. But if I'm partnered really closely with our entire ELT and they're saying, yes, we're going to go get this and we're going to power this growth, with
Mhm.
these new technologies, then we're all on board and managing the risk and the outcomes together, which is exactly where you want to be.
So you've been only there for 5 months, but let's say some of your peers have been there longer and they
Yes.
say, hey, how do I show to my board or to my C-level execs? Asking them to make all these investments. They made the investments. The return on these investments, my CFO, my CEO, or my board folks are asking, okay, what have you, I mean, given the short time frame, do you use any kinds of matrices to uh, give some kind of an assessment to the CEO or the board at all?
Yeah, not yet, but we will. So, as a matter of fact, in the last 2 weeks, we've taken some AI concepts to the board, and I'm taking it to the ELT next week. So this is like perfect timing because it's both sides. But first and foremost, we're saying, look, we know we need to invest in an AI lab that's going to make sure that we are testing and innovating and trying these things out in a secure enough way that allows us to be truly innovative, right? So give everybody the safe sandbox to do this that can start to prove out that business outcome, right? So let's test it a little bit and see what happens before we go full on into everything we're doing. At the same time, in parallel, I'm saying, look, we know some of that stuff is going to come out of the lab and need a home, right? So how are we going to do it? Which is this agentic AI and bot factory that I'm talking about. So we know we're going to have to make some of that investment. Now, what goes in and what comes out, we want to prove out in the lab, some of these things that will say, hey, we think we have this business outcome. Do we think we're really going to get it? And then that's going to give us directionally enough. Hey, if we put this in the agentic AI factory, it might cost us this much, but we think it's going to prove this much in revenue or this much in, efficiency on the back end. So those metrics aren't quite there yet, but the first thing is let's just bet on it. This technology is something that's not going away. We believe it's going to grow our business. We believe it's going to grow our profit because we can be more efficient with it. So we'll bet on it. And then we're going to have to be smart about how we continue to use it going forward. And we're going to get there pretty quickly as a team because we are all so on board by saying we know this is the future.
So maybe a sandbox approach, maybe crawl, walk, run also
You got it.
is what you're saying, Kristie, for your
You
peers,
got it.
because this is a question that came up a lot.
Yeah.
Kristie, when you joined 5 months ago, how were you able to assess the AI readiness of the organization and to identify some of the opportunities that were there for you to,
Yeah.
that you're
So
currently talking about?
Yeah. So first and foremost, like any new CIO would, I've been on this listening tour, literally going around the globe,
Hmm.
talking to people to understand where some of the opportunities are, where people
Hmm.
feel the risks are, maybe fears that they might have about it, and what we're going to do. So really
Hmm.
just listening and hearing. And one of the questions I ask people as I go around in some of my roundtables and my one-on-ones is, how are you using AI in your personal life? Right? I use AI to help me create a menu. I use it to help me create my workout plan. I use it to ask questions, as I'm, going into some meetings. Like these are things that it gets you familiar with it, right? So if you ask that question and you see every hand in the room go up, you're like, okay, like there's people that are naturally curious and are using this and they're not afraid of it, right? If you don't see any hands go up in a room, you're like, okay, we have a little bit of work to do. They need to be educated, they need to see how to use it, and they need to see what they're doing. Additionally, I wanted to see, are we already investing in AI, right? Like, what are we doing? And we absolutely have some things that we're already investing in because we have those people that were like, on the leading edge of this and saying, I know this is going to do something great for me. And so, our company is not afraid to lean in on those innovations. We're a technology company at the end of the day, and we will innovate. So that's good. Additionally, we had we call it the DART, the Digital and AI for Responsible Transformation, in order to govern it, which helps me know that, as a company, we're looking at this and saying, we know we have a responsibility to use AI securely, safely, according to all the laws and regulations that have been put in place around the world. So it's not for nothing. Since I've been here, we've rolled out, responsible AI training for everyone, which starts to give people some of that base of what is AI and how can you use it safely. So, that started to give me a sense of where we're going and what we can do. We have people who really want to lean in, which is great. And the tone has been set from the top, which is great as well. But we have some work today to really make it be something that becomes just a natural part of our DNA of how do I use these digital technologies. And we're going to get there. And I think we can do so pretty quickly because we have that tone from the top and the willingness to do so.
And that's fantastic. Um, Kristie, given after you've gone through this listening tour, you looked at everything else, uh, your peers tell me there's so many use cases that come across. How do
Yeah.
you decide? Because you can't go for all use
Yeah.
cases. How do you decide? Do you have some kind of analysis tool that your peers can maybe, I wouldn't say copy, but get inspired by to use?
Yeah. So it's actually interesting. So at my last company, I learned a little bit from it, right? So we
Mhm.
had an AI governance office as well, and we would have people come in and say, "Here's my AI use case, and here's what we think the numbers are going to be, and here's what we think the risk is." And we would do the impact assessment to see where we really thought it, and we would take the ones that we thought had the best ROI that
Mhm.
we do. But what I saw is that feels really bureaucratic, and you don't really have anything concrete to build that on. Like I'm going to put this in front of the sales, team, and this agent's going to, do 30% build 30% more incremental revenue because of this agent. And you're like, how can you prove that, right? Like how do you even know if that's factual or not? So that's where here, taking a little bit different approach to say, let's just get in there and test it, right? Which is why we're going with, how do we create these AI labs across all different types of AI that we can use, so that we can get in there and really play with it and test it. And in that testing, you can start to see if there's real business outcome, in terms of revenue or efficiency or whatever it is that we're looking for the outcome. So that's the concept of putting the lab in there first, which will help us. And then to come out of the lab and actually go into production, the goal is to say, look, prove it in the lab, right? So instead of proving it all up front and being really bureaucratic and saying yes or no, get in there, prove it in the lab, show some of the real facts of this is how much code I was able to generate and accept on, the first try, or, after a certain amount of learning, or this is how much, sales RFP that I could create, like, and turn it around in, 2 hours rather than 2 months, because it's got all the legal language and the actual pricing and all those things, and all that. So you're able to see some of that in the lab, which can get us through a lot of the bureaucracy faster.
So do it in the labs. You have certain, governance structure that you've set up to kind of
Mhm.
evaluate and what can produce the most business value is what you're saying, Kristie. Kristie, you also have talked about, making technology personal and focusing on people. Um, and you said there are some fears that people have about AI. How are you, I mean, you've done this on some of your listening tools. How do you ensure for leaders like you that AI is augmenting? And people always say, hey, we're going to augment, you rather than replace you in the organization. And there have been some let's just put it this way, there have been companies that have been kind of laying off certain people, etc. So there is that level of fear. How are you within the organization explaining that?
Yeah. So, first and foremost, we are a company that's growing, right? And so when you have that ability to grow, what you say is, look, like we need you to help us grow, and we just don't want to grow with, all additional people. Like if we want to double our revenue, we don't want to double our workforce as well. We want to double our revenue with maybe a quarter or 50% more workforce, which makes us more efficient. So helping them understand that is one, by asking them the sidekick question of, if you want to be a superhero here, who's your sidekick and what would you have them do? Helps them say, oh, they want me to become more efficient and do something rather than replace me, right? And so they're asking me to help do that, which is great. And then at the same time, I think there's also just recognition that when any new technology comes along, it does start to shift the way that we work. And we want them to be part of that shift, right? So instead of having to do data cleanup and manual data entry, right? Have the bot or the agent do that. And then you can
Mhm.
focus on what is that data telling you, right? That's the exciting
Mhm.
part. That's what, we all have been giving these amazing human brains versus the
Mhm.
computer brain in order to do this. So let's think about what that looks like. And so you got to get people excited about that and give them those concepts. This is part of that changing hearts and minds, right? Like we need to help dispel those fears and think about what's the new and the what's next. And I think, again, partnering with our head of HR really helps to think about what does that workforce look like so that you can share those messages about what we see the future of our workforce rather than letting people fill in the blanks by themselves and getting nervous about it.
I think that's a great point. Uh, don't let them fill in the blanks. You fill in the blanks. Having said that, Kristie, this one of the things we do within this platform is for folks like you and companies like you to really talk about why should some of these people come and join you. Because if all the AI folks that are coming out end up with a few companies in Silicon Valley, we'll never see the true benefits of this technology. Tell our listeners, what kind of people do you look for in bringing on to your team, and so that hey, uh, you've got this awesome agentic factory, you've got the bot factory. That sounds pretty cool. So, what kind of folks are you looking to as you're growing, as you said?
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, I want people who are naturally curious, not just about
Mhm.
technology, but about our business as well, right? So, how
Mhm.
can you come in and help us drive better business outcomes? Help us drive
Mhm.
that growth. Help us drive that
Mhm.
growth in revenue. Help us drive that growth in cash. Help us drive that
Mhm.
growth in profit, right? Help make
Mhm.
it a better user experience for our coworkers, for our
Mhm.
customers, for our vendors, which means I need you to be
Mhm.
naturally curious and ask, why does it work this way? Could it work something differently? What if, right? Like those are the things. And be
Mhm.
natural problem solvers, and we have some key business problems that are preventing some of that growth. So how do I figure out how to solve the problems to get there? So that's the first thing, is be naturally curious in the technology and the business, and then be that critical thinker as well. And then we need some of the change agents right now, right? So as you're coming in, how do you start explaining this technology and how this can help change the business for the good, and change those hearts and minds in a way that doesn't create fear. And you need somebody, when this is what I love. Like my kids, I have 3 kids in college right now, and many of their professors are actually asking them to use AI every day in their work assignments, right? And they actually have to prove, like, I put this in Chat GPT and I put this here, and here's where it's wrong, or did they both say the same thing, or whatever the case may be, which is great. I love that our universities are doing that and having them test it a little bit and not just accept the right answer. But that is going to help to bring our current workforce up the chain and learning curve as well, right? And bring that education. And and they can do kind of that reverse mentoring up and say, look, I've been using AI like this. They're digital natives anyway. So, and this is how you use AI. They're not scared of it. So I think it's a great way to think about how we can do that. And then just the last part, Sanjay, is like we need people who are thinking this through from all different perspectives. I need the person who is thinking about the opportunity. I need the person who's thinking about the risk. I need the person who's thinking about this in Asia versus the person in Europe versus the person in the US, because we need to have those perspectives to really help us think about the best way to use this. And our ideas are all going to build upon one another. So that inclusive workforce that's going to listen to one another and build on each other's ideas is the other part of it.
Awesome. So if you're listening to Kristie, she's looking for people who have curiosity, an open mind, can add to business value, a diversity of thought in terms of a global thought process that can add to it. Uh, hey, man, if I had the skills, I would apply, but that's a whole separate issue. Um, Kristie, your organization, like a lot of our listeners' organizations, works globally. You work across cultures, across different regulatory environments. How do you navigate that, especially with this technology? There's the EU AI Act, there's so many other things. And then obviously there are cultural nuances. So talk to our peers as to how do you deal with that? You went on that listening tour around some pretty cool places, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, look, I've been to China, I've been to Barcelona, I've been to Budapest, and I've been to Tampa, Florida, and Fremont, California, and Greenville, South Carolina, and Mexico. Right? Like we are truly a global organization. I'll be heading to India in a couple months. I think that's the beauty of who we are, though, right? Because everybody comes at it differently. All of our
Mm-hmm.
friends that are sitting in the EU, they very much have GDPR and the EU AI Act that they're thinking about every day. That they're thinking, oh my God, how do I use AI and not, do it in a way that's going to put us at risk and gain us great penalties. But then you have people in the US and other parts of the the world that say, look, there's still ways that we can use it responsibly. It doesn't mean no, you just have to use it responsibly. And so that's the beauty of getting that cultural perspective all together. Number one. But we very much, in putting together our DART, the Digital and AI Responsible Transformation group, we've got data privacy and legal and supply chain and HR and IT and cyber. We're all in the room together, and we ask for AI champions to be around the world so that they can help explain some of the things that we need to look out for, but really also be championing it to say, hey, bring those use cases in so we can talk about them, so we can get to yes, because that's what we want to do, right? We want to get to yes to solve those business problems. And those champions are really starting, and they are in every function, in every persona that we have within our workforce, but also around the world to really help us think about it. The second part we have is what we call enablers, which these are the people who are saying, great, I hear what you want to do, I hear there's some risk, let's talk about how to do that. We're going to figure out how to enable it and get it done. And there's like some easy things you can do, right? Like, when you don't like the terms and conditions of something, have legal call them up and say, hey, we don't like that term and condition. Can you change it? And a lot of the companies don't even know because they're so new, and they're like, sure, we'll change that. And you work with their legal and you get it figured out. So there's some really, smart people out there. And I feel the real strength of the TD Synnex network is that if we all act as one team together, we're bringing the power of the globe together to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the power of the risk and how we manage it, but also the opportunity and what we can really go get. And that's the exciting part of it.
Very exciting. As you said, the people around the globe, coming up with ideas. I think it's pretty exciting times, which kind of lead me to ask you, Kristie, what are the, you've been 5 months into this, but what are your top three AI priorities for the next, let's just say, next 12 to 18 months at TD Synnex, and which technology will play the biggest roles?
Yeah, so definitely building out our AI labs is one of my top priorities because I just want people to get in there and play and experiment and try. I don't want them to be afraid of it, so give them a place that says, "Look, go play," right? Like we brought all the toys, go do it and see what it's like. Which I'm thinking is going to get people really excited about it because there's already a lot of excitement here. The second part is building out that agentic AI and bot factory to really make sure that we can deliver at scale, right? We need to be able to do this at scale in a way that makes it really easy, that it's not just my team that can do it, but in a citizen development way that says, if you can do it here, then you can do it for our business because it's secure and ready to go. And then the third thing is really identifying how do we bring the readiness of our company up to speed on all of this AI concepts that we have. We want you to get you out there and experiment. We want you to drive more efficiencies. We want you to drive new business models using AI. And so that's, working with people like our CHRO, with our ELT to really explore what are those key areas where we want to do this. And everybody's, aligned in creating their strategies and how we want to do this. And then I just need to partner with them. And I've got a team. We met this week in Tampa, and I've got a team that is ready to roll up their sleeves, dig in, and ready to go. So I'm super excited.
Ah, fantastic. Yeah, lab, agentic and bot factory, and then getting people bought in and engaged. I think those are pretty exciting times, Kristie. Kristie, finally, for others who are on this journey from whatever you've learned in these 5 months, and obviously a amazing career before that, what would be a lesson learned for them from what you have learned, what you could share with other leaders who are really embarking on this AI transformation, as we call it?
Yeah, I think the lesson learned is to embrace it, right?
Mhm.
Don't block it, but embrace it because the company that blocks it is going to be left behind. There's no doubt in my mind, and you could already start to see that with you know chats that I have in my networks with CIOs and even different companies that the ones that aren't starting to really go down this are feeling left behind already because they start to see other companies already starting to gain some advantage. So my lesson learned for everyone is embrace it.
Embrace it or you will get left behind. Kristie, having said that, I'm just curious to know, and I ask this respectfully, you've seen the cloud, you saw the mobile transformation and some of these others. How does this compare? I mean, we don't have an exact time frame, but you had a front row seat into some of these. How does it feel? I mean, is this different than everything else?
This is moving at such an accelerated pace to all of those, right? So when mobile came on, you had the people that were like, I'm never going to carry a phone. That seems awful. And I would never
Mhm.
do that. And now, decades later, I can't live without my phone. The
Mhm.
cloud was the same way. Some people were really scared about it. And I will never do anything on prem or off prem. Like that
Mhm.
concept was like, no way, no how. And now we see that everybody went from on-prem to the cloud, and now they're hybrid, right? And so it
Mhm.
took a little bit, and there were these mindsets. I think the difference now is that this technology, instead of it being the CIO having to roll it out and think about how we're going to do it and how we're going to use it, it is in the hands of everyone. And we've got, the generation in elementary schools are using AI and high schools are
Mhm.
using AI, colleges are using AI. I already talked about that with my kids. You know,
Mhm.
this is something that this is being built into the DNA of humans of AI is here to stay and we're going to use it in a different way. And so while legacy AI, AIML and how we use it, that took a little while. This generative and agentic AI, it is moving at a pace that outperformed all of that other technology. And that's why I say embrace it or you're going to be left behind. And I think it's a really exciting time to be a CIO. It's what, if there's anything that's never going to stop, it's change. And this is one of those things for a CIO. It's super exciting.
Great time to be a CIO. So, Kristie, we end generally with a lightning round of questions.
Sure.
Now we're at the TikTok part of our show. So, one word answers. Let's see what you say. Part of it, I think you kind of answered. So, Kristie, cloud or on-prem?
Got to be both. Can I say
Okay,
hybrid?
sounds good.
Okay.
Supervised or unsupervised learning?
Both. It depends.
Okay. You're beginning to sound like a lawyer, but we'll give you a pass on that.
They say that
Bill,
lawyers always say both, or it depends. It
no,
depends.
you can say
It's
both. I'm
also
just
true of
kidding. You can
business
say
school
both.
grads. That's always the answer of the business case that you're bringing. It depends.
Yeah, you can say both. Uh, Build or buy AI solutions?
Um, I know I keep saying both, but it depends on what you're trying to do. So it's both. My preference for some of these for testing purposes is
Mhm.
is really to to buy, but there's absolutely cases where we should be building.
Okay. Synthetic data or human generated data?
These are not
I think
binary,
I know the
Sanjay.
answer to it. It depends or could be both.
Definitely both. I want to test with synthetic data in the labs, right? For sure.
Yeah.
And then it depends on the rest.
Okay. Finally, Kristie, open source or proprietary AI software?
Uh, Open source is really a great concept and preferred because I think it moves a little bit faster. So I'll stick with open source, but again, both.
Okay. It's both for Kristie, for everything that you said.
Yes.
Oh, wow, Kristie, what an inspiring conversation. Really learned how a visionary CIO is essentially also functioning as a chief AI officer, a chief transformation officer, a chief change agent within an organization, and building truly ambitious AI capabilities while never losing sight of the human element. And to our listeners in the AI community, whether you're a leader, AI leader, a practitioner, or enthusiast, Kristie's journey reminds us that the most powerful AI transformation happens when we combine technological innovation with human compassion and strategic thinking. Thank you so much, Kristie, for joining us on the CIO podcast and sharing your wisdom. Really can't wait to see how your AI factory transforms TD Synnex and the broader technology distribution industry. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with others who are passionate about enterprise AI. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI. Kristie, thank you so much. This was fabulous. Really
Thank you
enjoyed it.
so much for having me, Sanjay. It was great.